Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be going over a different film called The Hustler from 1961 starring Paul Newman. Now this film is a classic, and for any film aficionados out there, you may be aware of its sequel, The Color of Money from 1986, directed by Martin Scorsese, which also stars Paul Newman and Tom Cruise. Today I'm going to be going over The Hustler. This is one of the best sports films ever made, but also it's just a very good film. Period. This is a classic. It's about billiards, aka pool, and Paul Newman plays a character named Fast Eddie. Fast Eddie is pretty much a hustler. He's a pool player who hustles and plays for money. He gambles. We also have Jackie Gleason star as Minnesota Fats. Piper Laurie plays Eddie's love interest, Sarah, and we also have George C. Scott as the character of Bert. This is directed by Robert Rossen and based on the novel by Walter Tevis. And The Hustler is such an amazing film. It's a movie really about pride and the difference between winning and losing, but also the love and just like the thrill of playing, of gambling. And I love this film. Paul Newman plays Fast Eddie, and he has this level of coolness about him, yet his pride gets in the way. He has faults. He's vulnerable. So even though he has talent as a pool player, he's really holding himself back by his attitude and the way his outlook on life is. And this is really a movie about a character discovering what it means to win and what is really important. Is it important to be the best player? And that's where we see this character start out. We see him as Fast Eddie, this really kind of like young hotshot pool player, and he wants to go against Minnesota Fats, played by Jackie Gleason, who's supposedly the best pool player in the country. He does have talent, but his attitude and just pride gets in the way, and he's basically left at rock bottom. He loses money. A partner of his ends up leaving, and during his kind of like rut, he finds this character named Sarah, and she has some issues in life as well. They both kind of need each other, but ultimately, Paul Newman plays this character who just doesn't want to lose. He doesn't know when to give up, but he's also full of pride, and he basically doesn't look at what's important in life. And I love that. I love the themes of this film. And the cinematographer here did many other classic films. He used the widescreen format of CinemaScope, and the cinematographer of this film also created an optical effects process that employed mirrors to create backgrounds. These effects were used on many of the pool room sequences. And Robert Rossen was actually a hustler when he was younger. He actually was a pool player. You can definitely tell he put that experience into the visual style of this film. Paul Newman was not the first actor to be offered Fast Eddie. Tony Curtis turned it down. And Paul Newman initially turned this film down. He was supposed to film another film with Elizabeth Taylor called Two for the Seesaw, but Fox went over budget and over production with Cleopatra, so that film was delayed, which allowed Paul Newman to play Fast Eddie. And speaking of Cleopatra, that movie was a big toll on 20th Century Fox. They were pouring through money, and they wanted to shorten this film. Robert Rossen disagreed. He showed a midnight screening of this film to the cast and crew. They showed it to their other thespian friends, and from a prestigious group of people, they loved it. And because of that, 20th Century Fox bumped up efforts with the promotional materials for this film. Pool player Willie Moscone was also brought on as a technical advisor and stand-in for the pool shots shown in close-ups of the film. And I love the way this shows pool, but that's not what makes it a special film. The game is secondary. This is human reaction. And because of the way it was shot, it has a lot of mise-en-scene to it. There's a lot said in the way this is framed. Nowadays, films would have about maybe 5 to 20 cuts back and forth between characters. Well, maybe it's because he had to conserve film, I don't know, but the older films, even though it's a bit more long, even though it's a bit more slow, for our modern audiences, there's something about less being more in this film. One shot shows the actions of the characters, what needs to be said about the setting, and more is said through one long take or one frame in this film than 20 cuts of editing now. And also, they play around with high and low angles for uses of power. I love this part where George C. Scott's pretty much his character Bert, who's a banker who decides to take in Paul Newman. And Paul Newman keeps losing this game, and he's begging for more money to be put in. And he's not really in a position to negotiate. And Paul Newman's showing and much lower than George C. Scott in like this high angle shot. And I love it because it shows the power between these two characters. But there's some very deep themes that are very edgy for this time. Also, it's the first time we had a major Hollywood film use the word bastard. I know, right? That seems like nothing nowadays. Yeah, those bastards. Yeah, bastard was used in this film. It was one of the early films of the 60s to use cussing. Very different, but like I said, this is a great film. Now, for modern audiences, it clocks in at about 135 minutes, but it does feel much longer than that at times. The middle does kind of feel slow, but it's worth it because despite the slow pacedness of it, I just love this character of Fast Eddie, and there's certain tragedy and kind of like defeats the character must go through to pretty much see what's important in life, you know? There's things that happen that put his character into perspective that really culminates in the third act. I love the third act of this movie. And this is one of the few films where a protagonist wins by surrendering everything they believe in, by basically surrendering everything they thought was important up to like the end of the movie, basically. Paul Newman believes in something. Fast Eddie believes in something, wants something, but ultimately, is it worth it? And that's one thing I love. He has to come at a crossroads, and that's so compelling for a character to basically go on, get succumbed by pride, hubris in a way, and then kind of step back and go like, no, there's more important things in life. Is this really what I need? Is this really what I want anymore? And then just step back, and I love that. Such a different type of film, even for Hollywood back then. This is shot in black and white, and the black and white adds a lot to it. They built sets, so older films kind of look more like a sitcom, but not in a bad way, just more that they use sets and stuff and blocking. And they actually made a diner at a bus stop, and it was made so well that people actually went there thinking it was a real diner. I love that. This is one of the few roles where Jackie Gleason was nominated for an Oscar. I think the only role. He didn't get it. Now, you may recognize Jackie Gleason from The Honeymooners and Smokey and the Bandit. Paul Newman and George C. Scott, I think, were also nominated. George C. Scott kind of had a problem with the Academy because he felt like you don't need to compete. They both gave great performances. And West Side Story really gave a lot of competition to this film that year in the early 60s. So Paul Newman didn't come home with an award, even though this is one of his best roles. He did, however, win for the sequel Color of Money, and that was also based on a novel. I just love this. I just love seeing Paul Newman play this like young hotshot kid who thinks he knows it all, but he's really his own worst enemy. He's holding himself back. But I also love the mutual respect Minnesota Fats and Fast Eddie have. Even though Fast Eddie just insults him, calls him Fats and stuff like that, they really respect each other at their skill for this game of pool and respect each other for the hustle of the game, really. And I love that. There's ups and downs, but this is a must-see, instant classic. If you're a fan of Paul Newman, totally check out this film. I love Butch Cassidy, Cool Hand Luke, even Road to Perdition to Cars, but this is one of his best roles. Fast Eddie is wonderful. He plays it to perfection, and this is just one of the best films made. This is a must-see, so definitely see The Hustler. It's a must-see, 5 out of 5 A+ for me. It doesn't get any better than this. It's an old-fashioned type of film, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just going to be kind of different for modern day audiences, but there is some edgy stuff here, and I recommend seeing this and The Color of Money. Feel free to follow me on the Stardust app at Fred Film Fanatic. Also, check out these videos on my channel. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. That's it for my thoughts on The Hustler. Have a good day, everyone. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for more notifications. Till next time, you can catch my review of The Color of Money.